Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 613. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. The SPaMCAST 613 features our essay on directive and non-directive coaching. Directive coaches, akin to many athletic coaches, are a hard sell at the team level. Non-directive coaches, akin to mentors, are not always viewed as effective by senior leaders. In reality, it's not cut and dry. In the second spot this week, Jeremy Barrio brings his QA corner to the cast. We discussed coaching testers. Indirectly, we have a discussion about the use of directive and non-directive coaching styles. You can reach Jeremy at barrioandassociates.com. Link in the show notes. Directive or Non-Directive Coaching by Thomas M. Cagley Jr., Megan E. Cagley. The word coach is used so indiscriminately that the meaning is hard to discern. Saying you're a coach still sends a signal, but the signal is at the mercy of the person who hears the term, and it might not be what you intend. In agile coaching technique styles of coaches, we use two different coaching approaches to define a continuum, directive and non-directive. We used athletic coaches to mark the directive end of the spectrum, and life coaches to mark the non-directive end. Each style has a very different approach to involvement. To get a sense of how the market is leaning on the coaching involvement level scale, I grabbed a handful of job postings from LinkedIn from the US. Some from the East Coast, some from the Central Plains, and the West Coast. I pulled the job requirements and sorted them into categories. These categories could be interpreted as directive or non-directive based on the verb they used. For example, if the requirement used the active verb manage, I put the requirement in the directive column. Verbs like advise and mentor, I put in the non-directive category. I threw out things like projects and activities to be assigned as needed. I didn't know what those could mean. Coaching styles, as noted earlier, can be separated into macro categories, directive and non-directive. The basic approach of a directive coach is to tell, show, do. The coach will teach the coachee, individual or team, how to perform a behavior or ceremony, then demonstrate, and then oversee the coachee performing the activity. The train-the-trainer approach used for transferring knowledge to teach classes is a form of directive coaching. I've used it often. I've been on the other end of it. It's highly useful. In directive situations, the coach needs to have deep levels of understanding and knowledge of the subject matter. For example, if you were coaching a team on behavior-driven development, BDD, you'd need an understanding of not only the theory, but the practical knowledge of how to write and execute BDD tests. Directive job requirements include action verbs such as enforce, implement, lead, manage, methodologist, participate, improve, and measure. None of these are bad things, but they are very directive in nature. The basic approach of non-directive coaches works by helping the person or people they are coaching to discover and apply their personal experience to solve their problems. Alyssa Atkins, author of Coaching Agile Teams, uses the phrase ask the team, which is reflective of a non-directive coaching approach. This style is very popular in Agile circles. Job requirements for those action verbs include one or more of the following and therefore were judged to be non-directive: facilitate, mentor, coach, train. Even though the non-directive style of coaching is more popular in the Agile communities, the small sample of job descriptions includes substantially more directive type responsibilities, about a 60-40 split. Styles are just styles. I've used directive and non-directive techniques. The context and the agreement with the people involved provide a way to navigate between the two camps. Thoughts, comments, all welcome. Please feel free to reach out at spamcastinfo@gmail.com or tcagley@tomcagley.com. and we'll be happy to have a conversation. There are a number of other essays in this theme. I'll put links in the show notes so that you can get to them also. I look forward to the conversation. Jeremy Barrio, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
It is always a pleasure to be here, my friend.
Jeremy, coaching QAs, how does that work?
Coaching QA, I think, is no different than coaching in anything else, such as like sports or agile teams, like executives, like left, right, and center. You're there to help direct and give guidance to those individuals. From a QA perspective, a good coach for QA would help not only just like kind of like the current situation or scenarios that they might be going through, but help guide them through from a strategic perspective and kind of forward thinking where they can go on and succeed without much direction from the coach going forward.
So I think we might differ a little bit on perspective of coaching, but so I want to test that. Coaches tell people what to do?
No, I don't think they do. I don't think they should. Like they can, again, like if I look at it from a sports perspective, as everyone knows, I do jiu-jitsu and I coach and I do get coached when I compete. When I go onto the mat, my coach, he gives me just general direction. He tells me, okay, this is your game plan. This is here. You got this. Get on there and do it. Now, when I'm on the mat and I'm fighting, something may happen where I might get a little bit of lost control, and now he's telling me what to do. I think that's how I see from a coaching perspective is that you're giving that guidance, you're giving that direction, but if something is going wrong and maybe the person is struggling, then you give them a little more hands-on and coach them through and give them the direction they need to make sure they succeed.
So how do you come up with a contract with that individual so that they can tell you what they want you to coach them on and what they don't want you to coach them on?
That's through the initial conversations you have with those individuals and set the expectations across. Once you set those expectations, because you could coach someone where they're just like, do you know what? I just need you just to give me a helping hand, just a second set of eyes, give me a little bit of guidance and going through. Or, Jeremy, we're in this project. We are just up a creek without a paddle. We need some help. Can you come in and help coach us through it? So I think if you don't have those general conversations, then you can never come up with your set of expectations and guidelines going forward. Like I would never go in with a generic coaching contract saying it's like, okay, I'm going to do this for you, and that's it. That's all.
Team level is always an interesting part because you have a group of individuals. Some want you to whisper in their ear. Some want to be talked to, after the fact, so that you're not in essence taking away their motivation or their ability to act. Some don't want you to interact with them at all. It's not, they don't want your coaching. That happens on a normal team. How does that work in QA? Is that if you have a team of, let's say, 3 testers and 4 coders, how would you create that set of expectations across that group so that you could have those individualized conversations?
Well, from there, it would be with the conversations, and even just have like a quick, like 2 hour, like not a quick 2 hour, maybe like an hour, maybe 2 hour, just general organization session where you're setting those guidelines and saying, and those expectations, and then have the team come up. And maybe afterwards, if you notice that there are individuals that just didn't speak up or didn't want to talk or just were quiet, have a separate meeting set aside with them to go over. It's like, hey, okay, you didn't really say much in the meeting. Is there anything of concern? Like, do you want to have just a separate conversation? Let's go through this. And like, those are probably the individuals that are like, as you said, like, just don't tell me what to do. I'm just going to do my job, blah. But you still need to have that conversation to set the expectations. And there could be other reasons why they have that type of mindset of like, don't bother me. There could be something else going on, and having a separate conversation could maybe draw that out. And maybe afterwards it turns out that they do need your help. They just don't know how to vocalize it or don't understand what help you would provide.
Walk me through the kind of interaction you'd have in terms of coaching at the team level. So again, we have a standard sort of agile team, anywhere from 5 to 15 people, cross-functional, pretty normal. How does give me sort of how does the coach work? Does the coach live with them? Does the coach, just fly in and fly out? How does that work?
So from there, I think it depends on the situation that's coming on. Like when you look at the team, because the team could be doing very well. There just might be like, you have the initial set of observations and the conversations you have with like the people that would bring me in as a coach. And you would have the initial assessments where like for the first week, maybe half a sprint, maybe even a full sprint, sit in and just observe everyone and have kind of coffee break type conversations with individuals to see how things are going and what they have and what they're doing. And then from there, giving that assessment. And it could be after the initial on-site. Maybe it's just, maybe I need to be on site only for maybe a few days every month or so, just to kind of keep track, but everything else could be done through phone calls or maybe conference calls or webinars or anything of the such, just to see how things are going.
I'd suggest that most coaches, for basic modes of operation, or maybe 5, once they get started. The first one is observing. The other one, the first active one really is nudging. So it's, that little, hey, did you think of? I would suggest that that's pretty normal. Then you get to pushing, sort of, hey, you really need to go this route. And that's probably stuff that you have in, a out of earshot kind of conversation, assuming they want that kind of active intervention. Shoving is the most, and occasionally I work with people who want me to keep them from doing something that I would suggest is career limiting. So you throw your body in front of the train kind of thing, knock them out of the way and let it run over you kind of stuff. But my favorite activity, and it's something that I guess as my kids got older, I got better at, and that is just ignoring the crud out of things that are trivial. Do you have, or do you think those are the kinds of things that when you're coaching QAs, are they the kinds of things that you would do, or are they different for QAs?
I would say it's both the same. Because as you're going through your list, like, a lot of it resonated because a lot of the stuff I did, I threw myself in front of the train. I've pushed, I've nudged, I've suggested, I've done everything. There was just different scenarios that required it. So I think the framework, from whether you're coaching a QA team, an engineering team, product development team, a complete agile team, I think that framework is still there. I think it's the same one. I think it just based on the scenario and how you use it and how you promote it is different for each individual. For me, I try not to, like, pushing. I think to me pushing and shoving seems a bit too forceful. I think for me, It's still the same term, but the way I don't seem as if I'm pushing, if that makes any sense. I try to show the value in doing, if they need to do something and I see they need to do something, I don't come out and say, you guys need to do this. I tell them, it's like, hey, if we go this route and then I show them the value of doing that to them and have them have that understanding and have them get that kind of ownership themselves so that they can have a say and say, oh, do you know what? I like this. We can do, what if we did it this way? And as long as it's the same, similar flavor, then that's perfect. If they have the ownership now and they'll run it. They'll take it. They'll take it away.
So Jeremy, you have a organization that has coding teams and testing teams and other sorts of teams, and that's where the teams are. Who would you coach to break those barriers down? Because that's a waterfall setup.
Yes. I think the first set of individuals I would coach would be the leadership. Because the leadership are the ones that that created that type of waterfall, agile, fragile-ish type of scenario. So coaching them and letting them understand where, like, the values of self-managed teams, of like hybrid organization setups, anything of the such, moving away from some of the from the kind of like archaic organization setups or even some bad matrix setups to help improve the flow of information and improve the flow of work.
Jeremy, this is another intense conversation. How would people continue that conversation with you?
They can get a hold of me through Twitter. My handle is @jbarrio. You can get a hold of me through LinkedIn. Do a search for Jeremy Barrio in Toronto. You'll come up with my name. Or you can come out to my website, barrioandassociates.com.
And that contact information will be in the show notes. Jeremy, as always, I hope we got people's blood flowing, because it's cold outside, baby. In the Northern Hemisphere, at least. In Reread Saturday News, this week we reread Chapter 12, titled Drum Buffer Rope Scheduling. The concept of drum buffer rope is critical to using the theory of constraints in real-world environments. Remember, if you have not bought your copy of Steve Tendon's and Daniel Doiron's Tame Your Workflow, please use the link in the show notes. Support the authors, support the blog and podcast. In the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 614, we will feature our interview with Jenifer Bonine. Jenifer and I talked AI and the impact of AI on the future of business. This is not science fiction, and the future is not as far away as you might think. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?